So those of you who have been watching for a little while might remember that Yasutomo sent me a big box of goodies after talking to them at NAMTA last year. And I have not had a chance to really dive into them. So today I wanted to take a look at the brushes they sent. We have the Fusion brush wrap that also includes 5 Fusion brushes, so size 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We have some of their Wa-Fude brushes in we've got a bunch. So what I am hoping to do today is to unwrap these and test these out both on my reusable knockoff Buddha board as well as on watercolor paper. We are going to start with the Fusion brush wrap. The brushes are made in China. The Fudemake is made in Taiwan, and these are distributed by Yasutomo. And if you're curious about what all they sent me, make sure you check the video down in the description below. It'll give you a sneak peek at some upcoming videos that I'm going to be working on soon. So this is held shut with a tape dot. I also want to take a moment to thank Yasutomo for sending me all of these wonderful goodies that I get to share with you guys. And inside is our brush wrap, our Fudemake, and we have a little plastic tie here. And then it unwraps like this. And we have our Fusion brushes. They each have a brush cap. They have a plastic handle with a metal ferrule, and then I believe these are synthetic brushes. And we have 5 of these, and each one of these does have sizing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and unwrap all of these things, and then I'm going to wash the sizing out, and then we can get to testing them. The nice thing about the wrap is that there is a place for all of these brushes plus 3 more, or you could double up with some of the smaller ones. And then because it is bamboo, you can see through it, air will circulate through it, and they will dry naturally so long as you don't put them somewhere where they can't receive adequate airflow. So we are going to now move on to the Wa-Fude brushes. This is the large brush Nankai Grand, Gross Nankai. So we got 2 languages going on here. So on the back of each package, we have some information. So for example, this brush creates bold strokes and lines, excellent ink holding capacity, medium coarse with a little spring, brush made of natural hairs, handle made of synthetic bamboo. So we have here, there we go, and hopefully you guys can see it. We have some more brush characteristics. So our hardness, our absorbency, our spring, our durability, and our point. And then with our instructions for first use, remove glue from the tip of the brush by unraveling and dip in soft water. And then they recommend that we clean the brush in water until ink is washed off and dry the brush with the tip facing down. And this actually has a little hang tag to make that a little bit easier. So these large brushes also come with a brush cap. That was the first thing to come out. Let me see if I can. There we go. And then this is held with just a little bit of tape that we can kind of, or glue that we can just kind of smooch off. So that is the large brush Nankai. And I probably will forget which one is which in the process of this. Next, we have the large brush Hakusho. I'm going to go ahead and unwrap this before reading it. And this brush was made in Japan. This one was also made in Japan. So the large brush Hakusho creates bold strokes and lines, excellent ink holding capacity, medium stiff with a soft point, brush made of natural hairs, handle made of bamboo. Then we have the brush characteristics. Same instructions for first use. Also has just the tiniest bit of tape runner schmutz on there, and it has a hang tag. So it looks like this. Okay, so we're moving in descending size. So next would be the large brush Akagi, sorry. This one is also made in Japan. And there's actually more information on the front of the packaging, which I'll get back to in a moment. So this creates bold strokes and lines, excellent ink holding capacity, medium coarse with a good point, brush made of natural hairs, handle made of bamboo. Here is our brush characteristics. And you can see the tape runner right there just to hold it in place. Then we have the large brush Hanamichi. And I will point out that while these are not designed necessarily for Western style watercolors, you can use Sumi and Chinese watercolor brushes for Western style watercolors if you so desire. So this one, Hanamichi, create bold strokes and lines, excellent ink holding capacity, medium coarse with good point, brush made of natural hairs, handle made of synthetic bamboo. So this one is natural bamboo and this one is synthetic bamboo. Here are our brush characteristics. Little bit of schmutz that I will just, there we go, use a little bit of friction to remove. Now we have the small brush Sen. Create smooth strokes and fine lines. Good ink holding capacity, medium stiff with a little snap and a sharp point. Brush made of natural hairs, handle made of synthetic bamboo. Here are our brush characteristics. Now, moving over here, we have a different type of hair. So here is the small brush Kyo. All of these brushes seem to be made in Japan. Create smooth strokes and fine lines, excellent ink holding capacity, springy, comes to a precise point, brush made of natural hairs, handle made of bamboo. Here are our brush characteristics. Next is small brush Maki or Maki. You'll have to forgive my Japanese pronunciation. I am a Louisiana girl and I will butcher anything. Create smooth strokes and fine lines, excellent ink holding capacity, medium soft with a little snap and a precise point, brush made of natural hairs, handle made of bamboo. There are our brush characteristics. Remove that little bit of schmutz. And then finally, we have the small brush June Petite. Well, actually, small brush June, and then it's Petit Brosse June. Create smooth strokes and fine lines, excellent ink holding capacity, medium soft with spring and a precise point, brush made of natural hairs, handle made of synthetic bamboo, and then brush characteristics. And that one came off very easily. So now I'm going to head on over to a sink and I'm going to use cold water and brush soap to remove the sizing from all of these brushes. So the sizing in these brushes is pretty sturdy, it's pretty in there. So what you're gonna have to do is kind of break the brush up a little bit to allow water in. You may also want to soak it for a couple of minutes. I would recommend you avoid hot water because while hot water will melt the gelatin or the sizing faster, it can also degrade the glue that's used to hold the bristles in place. So my recommendation would be kind of break up the bristles, work in some brush soap, and just be kind of patient with these. I'm going to move the fusion wrap out of the way for a moment so that we can actually look at the front packaging on each of these. So the Nenkai brush is a beginner calligraphy brush that offers bold strokes. The brush diameter is 11/16 11/16 of an inch. I had a really long day today. And the brush length is 2 inches and 2 9/16 inches long. The ADHD is ADHDing today. That's all I can say. So each package should have some actual information about what these are used for. Now, am I going to use these for the recommended usage? Probably not today. I'm not particularly good at calligraphy. This is another beginner calligraphy brush with bold strokes. The brush diameter is 13/32 of an inch. So sorry. It also has the brush diameter and the brush length. I am just not going to read the brush diameters anymore. My brain is not mathing very well. That is Hanamichi. This is Hokusho, beginner calligraphy with bold strokes. This is Sen, beginner calligraphy, small letters. This is Akagi, beginner calligraphy. Now, calligraphy brushes can be great for inking or for expressive outlines as well. This is June, beginner calligraphy, small letters, writing names. This is Kyo, beginner to intermediate, fine letters to fine lines. And then finally, we have Maki, students beginner, small letters, fine lines. So none of these brushes are listed as being for, say, Chinese calligraphy or sumi painting, but that does not mean you can't use them for this. So next, I am going to pull out my knockoff Buddha board that I got from Five Below, and we will be able to see what kind of marks these brushes are able to make. Here is my knockoff Buddha board. You can also find the Chinese calligraphy practice mats on places like Amazon. You can tell mine has gotten a lot of use and some abuse, but what's cool about this is you can just use water to see what kind of marks these brushes are capable of, allow it to dry, and then use it again. Let's start with the brushes in the fusion wrap. So this is a fusion brush. This is made in China. This is the size 5. So we have a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1. These are made of synthetic fibers, and they do seem a little prone to dripping. So if you like synthetic fibers, then you know you probably need like a paper towel or something around to help with that. However, it does seem to hold a decent amount of water. Some flagging would help with that. Seems like it is capable of both very fine lines and thick lines. Not overly stiff. Honestly, if you are looking for brushes that have a larger handle, these could be a good option since, I thought I had a silver black velvet available, but generally watercolor brushes have pretty narrow handles that can cause some people to have grip issues. These are actually the ferrule, and then the brush is, or the barrel is larger, so that might help with that. This is the size 4. There's a pretty significant step down between the 5 and the 4. This one doesn't hold nearly as much as the 5. Decent fine lines though. Maybe a little bit snappier than the 5, and as you can see, we start to hit dry brushing pretty quick. Here is the 3. This one is a lot less drippy than the 5, but it really doesn't hold hardly anything. nice fine lines. This might be an option for folks who want to ink with a brush. I want to use a synthetic brush for that. Decent snap, but as you can see, it hits dry brush really quickly. Here is the 2. This one pretty drippy, and my bristles seem to be a little like set just a little bit off on this one. Does not have a lot of holding ability. Decent fine lines. I wish my brush was set properly because this could be a good option as an inking brush. Dries out very quick. And then finally the one. These are also, because they are plastic handle brushes, very light in the hand. The one would probably be pretty decent for inking, except it doesn't hold anything because there's no flagging on the bristles. So I'm going to give this a chance to dry off, and we will move on over to the Wa-Fude brushes. This hasn't fully dried yet, but it's mostly dry. We can move on. I'm going to start with the large brush Nankai. I'm going to dip it in water, and it comes to a decent point. Do want to remove some of the extra water. It seems like it would hold a lot of water. So we're going to start, I think, with a fine line. Oh, a little drippy. That's okay. And then we're going to do a really thick line, which this thing is capable of doing really thick lines. This would be fun for really large calligraphy. I mean, look at the size of this brush. And then we're going to try doing, I may run out of room, which is this one. Some back and forth. This is not a super flexy brush, so there is... Actually, I thought there would be another fiber on the inside, but it does not seem to be the case. Now, the fiber is not disclosed. It could be goat, pony. I don't think it's weasel, though. It's kind of long for weasel. And then let's try... Yeah, it's kind of a stiffer brush. So that is the large brush Nankai. Not fully dry, but I think we can move on. Next is the large brush Hakusho. Now, something that takes some getting used to is the balance of these brushes. They are not balanced in the same way a Western style brush might be balanced. So they may feel, if you try to use them the way you would Western style watercolor brushes, they may feel kind of uncomfortable. They're really designed to be held more upright like this. So a little less drippy than the Nankai. Also holds a lot of water, ink, or paint. Let's try to get a nice fine line out of this one. It means I am knocking some of the excess out, and there are some stray hairs. That's pretty normal for these kind of brushes when you first get them. Decently fine lines. Let's test the flexibility. I do like the personality on the line, the bit of feedback that we get. I think it's a little more flexible because it's about as long but not as full as the grand brush or the large brush Nankai, reading the French down there. And then as for mark making, yeah, a little more flexible. It's not as densely packed, so it actually leaves room for a little bit more expressive marks. Moving on to large brush Akagi. This is more similar to like what I think of when I think of Sumi brushes. And this and the Hanamichi both look pretty similar. This does not seem to have like a goat hair core like some Sumi brushes seem to have. And it does come to a pretty nice point. This one will probably feel, this is actual bamboo, not the plastic like these two here. So this one may feel a little bit more similar to, if you're used to the weight of Western style Sumi brushes, this one's gonna feel more like that. It has a pretty smooth glide. Decent snap. If you're used to the snap of a synthetic, this might feel a little bit floppy. I actually like this. And it's pretty large. You don't get a lot of feedback on this one the way we did from the large brush Nenkai and the large brush Hokusho. Next up is large brush Hanamichi. So this one has the synthetic bamboo handle. It feels a little bit lighter in the hand than the large brush Akagi. And this one does not seem to have, I don't know, I must have gotten some brushes at some point that had like a pony core with like weasel or goat on the outside. Now it makes me want to know. All right, comes to a pretty good point. This one's capable of some pretty fine lines. Maybe a little bit floppy if you're used to pretty snappy brushes. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. Again, this is a larger brush, would benefit from working larger. This one has good cohesion. You don't get a lot of feedback unless you start to work it until it's dry brush, and then you get some nice feedback. So that is large brush Hanamichi. All right, now we are moving on to the smaller brushes, starting with small brush Zen. And this one actually has a plastic collar, and it is a synthetic bamboo brush. I know, running out of room. It's Louisiana. It takes forever for this to dry. Pretty soft. Seems to have good water capacity. Yeah, very soft, very floppy. So if you like softer brushes, if you want something that can do really expressive brush strokes, this might be a good one. This is small brush Zen. I find small, floppier brushes to be challenging to control. So not necessarily the best fit for me if you want to do tight details. Next, we're moving over to a new fiber now. And this is small brush Kyo. So we have the, it's supposed to look like a thread bind. Do any of these have a thread binding? Yes, actually. Akagi has a thread binding, but Hanamichi looks like it has a thread binding and it doesn't. And it would be interesting to know if these are at, these two here, are at two different price points. So this one does not have a thread binding, but it has a black line printed to look like a thread binding. All right, so new fiber. Maybe this is a little coarser. Holds a decent amount of water. A little bit more feedback and splays a little quicker, which I like the feedback. I think that adds personality. Sometimes you want a variety of brushes though. For something like Erigame, this kind of more immediate feedback, the kind of scratchy appearance, can add a lot of personality. This is not quite as floppy as Zen, but it's still kind of floppy. Next is small brush June. So this is a lighter, maybe finer texture. Let's see after we wet it. So this one has a core. So it looks like it's made of two different fibers, maybe goat and then weasel. It comes to a pretty good point though. So I believe weasel is a stiffer fiber. Decent, and we get some feedback, some splaying. A little bit easier to control because it is a little bit stiffer. It has what looks like maybe a weasel core. So that is Small Brush June. And then finally, we have Small Brush Maki, and this one also has a collar on it. And it looks like it has a lighter fiber, and it looks like it has two different types of hair. So something on the outside and then something on the inside. Wow, that makes sense. The lighter fibers on the outside, the darker fibers on the inside. I wish they would disclose what animal hairs these are. A little bit of a difficulty getting it to come to a point. Pretty good if you're holding it vertically. Pretty good at those fine lines. Dries out faster. You run out of whatever liquid is in it. It could be ink, water, paint. Dries faster than the June. Pretty easy to do the tighter details. Actually, now it looks like it's holding water. Maybe I just didn't give it a very good dip. Does fat to thin pretty well. What about thin to fat? Oh, also okay. So this one feels like it might be a good one for the floral calligraphers. It has a good amount of snap. I know a lot of them like the synthetic brushes though, but this one is a good combination of snappy, holds decent water without it being too floppy. It can be kind of hard to see what's going on with brushes when we're using the knockoff Zen Board. So I have here some admittedly cotton rag watercolor paper. We could test on some rice paper as well. But I'm going to go with the cotton rag paper. And I also have some Gucai. You guys have told me how to say it. I'm so sorry. We're going to, since these are larger pans, they'll give us a little bit more room, although we won't be able to get some of these brushes in fully, and I may have to pull something else out. We're going to start with the brushes in the Fusion wrap. Fairly stiff synthetic. Some shedding hairs. Well, that might just be an uncut hair because that one's really persistent. Again, the 4 just does not hold as much. Obviously, they're very different sizes as the 5. A little bit better control though. Maybe a little too snappy. It can be a little challenging to do loops. Do wonder if these are going to stain. That's not really a big deal, just, you know, something I wonder. Of the sizes, I think I find the 3 in this the most satisfying.
This handles pretty similarly to how an inking brush might, with a larger handle. But the ability to carry and hold water is not my favorite. I'm just not a synthetics kind of person though. You can also see where the brush is breaking up. That does make for an interesting effect, but it makes for poor control. Moving on to the 2. If this one had been set properly in the ferrule, it would have been a pretty fun inking brush. I do wish these were flagged or in some other way adjusted to hold a little bit more paint. And while I like the longer brush on this, it can be a little stiff and a little too snappy, and it wants to fight me on these kind of tighter curls. We have one more. We have the size 1. And I'll just do this down here at the bottom. Very drippy. You guys saw that drip already. Really does not hold a lot of paint, which is a shame. It would be a good size for inking and fine lines. Doesn't have any real snap to it. Well, maybe if you go really thin with it, it has some snap. Let's see. On a textured and assertive paper like this, there's just too much texture and it really wants to fight the brush. Next, we're going to move over to the white and mixed fiber brushes. So that would be the Maki, the June, and the Kyo. And I guess we will just start with the Maki. This one dried a little stiff, so I'm going to use my paint puck to kind of break that back up again. This is much softer than the synthetics we were just using. So if you like a snappier brush, the synthetics are probably a good choice. If you like a softer brush, these mixed fiber brushes might be a better choice. We get a lot of feedback with these softer brushes. So if you like dry brush, these could be a good option. Though I will say these are probably not designed to be used on a cotton rag paper that has this much texture. They're probably designed for a paper that has a much softer texture. That was the Maki. Next is the June. This one's a lot easier to use on this paper. We do still get that texture though, which is fine. I actually really like dry brush texture. I think it's really pretty. This one's very soft. Might be better for larger illustrations. And it takes a pretty light hand for it with decent wrist control. So if you're not confident in your wrist control for watercolor, the June might be a little too soft for you. Then finally of this set, we have the Kyo. this one seems to have really good ability to hold paint. But it's still dry brushes. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm just pointing it out because it's something people care about. For some reason, for the loop-de-loops, this one is actually easier to use. And I am noticing a little bit of staining on the white fibers. Eventually, your fibers are going to stain anyway, but I'm just pointing it out. So that was the Kyo, and then was the June, and then was the Maki, I believe. For these two larger brushes, I went ahead and I got something a little bit larger to mix in. Guess I'll start with the larger of the two. I'm gonna do my best to judge this as fairly as I can. We'll see how that goes. I am not generally used to working with brushes this size. I know this would typically be used with like an inkstone. Now for me, this is a little unwieldy. Just the size is really pretty big. It obviously can hold a tremendous amount of paint or ink. Some stray hairs, that's pretty normal. Starting to drip on me already. Do a little bit of water control there. What I really want to see though is what kind of marks it can make. So we can cover a really large area with just one stroke. We are shedding hair. Again, that's normal, but just pointing it out. Was hoping to have room to test the rest of the brushes on this, since I've already went and grabbed another sheet of paper and this is just so big. That gives you some idea of what kind of marks this will make on a cotton rag paper, and that is the large brush Nankai. Trying to keep it all together so that I can, present all the information to you guys in a way that's easy to follow. This is going to take forever to dry, so I'm going to go switch this out. All right, now next is large brush Hokusho. So this one's a little smaller than Nankai. And it feels like it might be a little bit softer as well. And we did not get much of a mark with that. So let's try it again. That's a little bit better. These really large brushes make me want to try painting something huge, something really big and expressive. This one has a lot of shedding hairs as well. So that was large brush Hokusho. Finally, and I hope we have room, we have large brush Akage, or Akagi, which is the one with the bamboo handle. We have large brush Hanamichi and then small brush Sen. So we'll start with Akagi. This one seems to hold a bit of a better tip than the larger two brushes. But you guys can see that on this paper we get significant feedback because these softer bristles just can't quite keep up, and that is fine. Good amount of flex and pull. Holds together well. So that was large brush Akagi. Next is large brush Hanamichi. And I'll do that up here. Still get a good amount of feedback and dry brushing, even with, you know, I would say significant water added. This one is much softer than Akagi as well, or it feels softer, at least in my hand. The tip does seem to come to a finer point though. And there's some shedding. Again, that's perfectly normal. And then finally, we have small brush Zen. Very easy to pull that fine line with that. Also seems to hold together slightly better. It could be these smaller sizes just have more cohesion. Or it could just be that I'm more comfortable with these smaller size brushes. I feel like this has a little bit better snap as well, despite being a smaller brush. Does start to pull apart there though, so you can only push it so far. All in all, I think this small brush, I think Akagi and Zen might be two of my favorites from this. Thank you guys so much for joining me today as we took a look at Yasutomo's brushes. We have a variety, including synthetic brushes. They're fusion brushes that come in a brush roll. We also have larger calligraphy brushes, smaller brushes that can be used for calligraphy and sumi, as well as some mixed fiber brushes. I hope this demonstration was helpful to help you guys make your own decisions when you are buying art supplies that you can buy with confidence. I have some other videos about brushes for watercolor if you guys are interested in that as well. So make sure you check the cards and the description below. And a big thank you to Yasutomo for sending me these goodies to share with you guys here on the channel. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you guys again really soon with another art supply review or tutorial. Bye guys!